over and welcome.
Thank you very much for that fabulous introduction, and it's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to present to you today. I'm going to go ahead and start my share screen, and let's see, share. Okay, and then hopefully you're seeing this without are you successfully seeing this data visualization and dashboard strategies on your
Yes,
side?
yes.
Excellent. Okay.
It's moving and everything.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully it looks good on your side. So my name's Brandt, and I really do appreciate all of you being here today. So I'm currently the interim assistant vice provost for academic affairs and the director of institutional research. And so a lot of what I do is really data oriented. I still do research with the Department of Psychiatry and instruct in neuroscience and at the School of Social Work. So I'm almost every day I'm using dashboards and visualization techniques for report related efforts. And to that end, I'm hoping that this presentation will give you some ideas and some strategies that you might be able to implement in 2022. So happy New Year to everybody. And look forward. Hopefully we can all look forward to a great year despite all the challenges that we are having at both a personal and national level, and I hope for your resiliency and strength as you face all the challenges that you have, whether you have to work externally or if you're required to show up in a clinical environment. So thank you also. I saw that one of those chat items. So thank you also for your service in trying to deliver the best type of health care and research for people, because we certainly, if there's any time that we've needed it in modern history, now is it. I'm going to go through, as I go through this presentation, I'll probably make hopefully several good jokes. That's yet to be determined. But either way, with any of my opinions that I give, these represent me, not necessarily the OU Health Sciences Center. But everything that I will report on, I have references for, and I'm not really providing too much information that would require too much disclaimer. And as we get started, I'm actually going to increase the size of my own little where I can see you, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to give some feedback. Last time I did my presentation, I had like a poll everywhere. I don't think that will, I think that's probably a little bit more technical, a little bit more fancy than we need to be today, but I just wanted to ask Heather if she would review the chat as it occurs, and if there's anything there that I need to respond to, please feel free to interrupt me. I'll also look for hand raises if you're giving a hand raise, and I see your thumbs up. Thank you, Jared. I'm going to be asking a couple questions here in a few moments just to provide a little bit more context or orientation to the subject matter. And I also must say, Jared, I also saw it looked like a terrier in your, I think it was a little snowbound terrier in your picture saving screen. It was pretty cute dog there. So anyway, so if you want to respond via a thumbs up or thumbs down or raise your hand, please do, and I will address it as quick as I can. So here's a couple of important questions that might frame your experience or in the future, or where you need to go into the future. And the questions are these true for you? So the first one being, am I responsible for executive level correspondent and or grant related efforts where accurate and rapid reporting is essential to my career success? By a show of thumbs up, is anybody in that category? Okay, I'm not seeing, okay, I see one thumbs up. All right, so that's where, okay, excellent. See a couple thumbs up, so positive sign thus far. Okay, and second question that might help frame our experience today. Although I have access to professional statistical assistance, time and cost are constraints. Time and cost constraints are significant limiting factors. I see another one that also answered to the first. Okay. And then the final question that I have just for the framing today is, it is essential for me to communicate data in a manner that clearly illustrates its importance. Okay, and that's where most of us find ourselves. I know that there are many senior level leaderships here, senior level leaders that are responsible for grant obtainment. But we'll go through this presentation, and hopefully where you can see how you can apply these principles in your day-to-day. So one of the things that I wanted to do is just provide a few objectives to our meeting today. And so the first thing that I'm going to go over is the what and why of data visualization plus data dashboards. And I'm going to do it in a way that initially frames it in an academic or even in a clinical environment as relates to how we're designed neurologically and psychologically, so that so it kind of highlights the importance of data strategies. And the second thing we're going to go over is just really basic transitioning data from source to visualization. So in that second question where I asked if, for the questions that I asked before, oftentimes you may have access, if you're in a leadership position, to somebody that has, oh, I know this person or that person, and they are just a whiz with putting data together for me so that I can utilize it in a grant. And or sometimes you're wanting to make sure that what you're reporting on, whether it may have been updated or not, sometimes whenever we report out on data, that if we don't have that data well constructed, the totals or percentages, they may be inaccurate. And so we're going to go into a strategy in that data transition that ensures that challenge or that obstacle to accurate reporting is nullified. And then finally, we're just going to explore some data with visual analytic systems. That'll be dependent upon the time that we have available. But I do have both basically stagnant examples of data dashboards, but I also have some of my own data dashboards that I've developed, and then I will use some dashboards, at least as an example for some ideas that you might have in the future. So quick, what is data visualization? Well, data visualization, it really is becoming it's quickly becoming a well-defined interdisciplinary field that deals with the graphic representation of data. And so one of the things that I always like to highlight in regards to the importance of data visualization is in my postdoctoral research, it was actually in vision sciences, both vision and microbiology. And even so, for those that work on the clinical side or the research side, whenever we have any pathology to the eye, it not only affects us in our ability to interact with the world, but it really is integrated in almost every part of our physiology. And our visual cortex, we're going to just go over just a couple key concepts. It is the primary sensory system of which we are able to evaluate the external world. And without without our visual system, we are significantly impaired in our ability to move throughout time and space. And then in regards to why, for instance, whenever we go into dashboards, and I'm going to say, well, why would you really want an interactive dashboard? And one of the reasons that, at least that I've recognized, is in regards to learning. We've historically learned at least from a human species standpoint, not just sitting down in a seat and just retaining information that we might be able to put on a test, but most of the way that we learn actually requires our motor processing. And so whenever we engage both our visual systems and our motor systems, of which we can engage, let's say, through, literally physically engage with data that we have, that increases our our knowledge of the material that we have, and depending on what that information represents, that literally could be a component of survival, or at least in your case, possibly survival from a professional setting. So most of us, I wish I could say this was my dashboard of my car, but I know most of you are probably driving Mercedes and BMWs. Just kidding. But I think this is a BMW dashboard. I'm not for sure, but most of us use dashboards on a regular basis. And so one of the cool things about dashboards is we have this quick summary, basically a quick visualization of things that are quite critical to us. And so just like as I was mentioning, how our visual processing and our motor processing gives us the capacity to engage in the world. So as we engage in the world, many of the things of which we engage in a professional standpoint, and this advanced, basically, as we are far more advanced from a technical standpoint than we were literally just a couple decades ago. So this allows us to visually have quick awareness of very important aspects that otherwise, for instance, our brain would do, such as I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I would like to go here or there. We can say, all right, well, this is how much fuel that I have in the tank. We can use a dashboard for. This is how fast I'm going. This is, hey, am I being overheated? Am I being worked too hard, etc.? How much electrical, how much power do I have, temperature? So this is just a quick little example of how we use dashboard related items in our day-to-day. So whenever you provide dashboards to any of your colleagues or develop them for yourself, you are already quite intimately familiar with the utilization of dashboards. And the other thing that I would like to highlight the importance of dashboards that you might have, let's say if you're trying to, as you're trying to deliver on information, one of the important things is that we want to be able to say, hey, this is where we're at now, and this is where we need to be. So in regards to clinical and translational research, whether you're putting something together in the clinical world, in the research world, or trying to put together a grant, you want to be able to clearly show, not beyond just writing it down in a grant format, or let's say something that somebody might see, but you want to be able to clearly express, hey, this is the need that we have, and this is where we're at. And where we're at is not necessarily in our best interest, and we need to be able to go there. So to be able to show trends and data, or some of these key indicators that are necessary for in your environment, that is what a data visualization, data dashboard will allow you to be able to do. 3M and basically a company from, in Europe, has gone through, and they've done a lot of studies in regards to our visual and perception and data dashboards. So they've determined that more than 60% of information that is transmitted to the brain is visual. And so, of course, we understand that just looking at our occipital lobe and parietal lobes, and how our brain processes all of these visual images, and then even in our spinal cord, how our brain is so active in being able to make sure that we're able to even move our eyes in a way that maintains focus of something of important, or responds in a way that keeps us out of danger. So over 60% of our information is visual. And then 40% say that they report that they will respond better to visual information than plain text. And so oftentimes even in grants, we put together, we might have graphs or other visuals that highlight the information that we're trying to express. And that has been shown that that is a more ideal way to communicate. And in regards to social media, most of us are actively on some form of social media, or required to actually have some form of social media presence professionally. So 96.7 report that visual content engages them best in these social media platforms. So again, this is just arguing, hey, if you are not able to currently present your data in a way that's both visual and also and possibly interactive. This highlights that, well, that's what other people report as being ideal for them. And finally, whenever it comes to data visualization, what we're really trying to do, and beyond just making cool charts and graphs that other people might be able to interact with, is we actually want to tell a story. So the famous quote, "A picture is worth 1,000 years." Data visualization not only allows us a quick method of interpreting data, but allows us a visual context of which to tell a story of which the data represents. And that's really that. So whenever you put together your grant or whenever you're attempting to do something new in the clinical environment, you're really wanting to say, why is this important? And there's a greater story behind what you're doing. And that's what you want to be able to communicate in an ideal setting. Here's one of an example that I got, and I actually visited the little website, and it's a part of this PowerPoint presentation, and you can just grab the link from it. But it just wanted to show how some other people have told a story associated with things that are important to them. And in this case that you see on the screen here, they compiled all the plastic debris that we know exists, and then they gave a visual example. If you could just pile that, plastic as high as one could, this is the amount of just known plastic waste that we have, and that the amount of that would literally dwarf New York and all the buildings in New York. And this kind of, it's almost hard to I mean, this is a great example of the dramatic need to successfully manage these plastic debris. Many of you may change, you may trade stocks, you may be a day trader. I don't know. Congratulations if that's the case, assuming you're successful at it. But if you have any form of interaction with, let's say, a commodities exchange, or you might receive information on your 401k, et cetera, as a part of your retirement or planning to retire. Oftentimes, another good example can be the types of visualization that some of these investment firms have made to show. In this case, where they're showing, okay, well, let's look at just basic commodities. How much of that commodity is associated with different parts of, let's say, different companies, whether it's gold, copper, oil, et cetera. So this is just another example of a positive use of a data visualization for a banking purpose. And then getting a little bit more focused on data dashboards. So the data dashboard, there's a data management tool. It allows for visual tracking of key performance indicators that might be important for you in your business or in your academic environment. And this provides a visual tracking system that are typically interactively linked to data tables, of which are visually represented in the forms of tables, bars, charts, gauges. And so oftentimes we can see here that there's actually a trend line on the far, basically in the lower, basically in the far left, and in the upper quadrant of the figure. But they will use trend lines, and again, the trend lines will help show where we've been, where we're at now, and with current projections, where do we expect to be in the future. And so this is just another quick example of how dashboards can look whenever you integrate them with your data. A very common has anybody seen this the Johns Hopkins COVID-19 dashboard before? Has anybody seen this or used this for their own tracking of COVID-19? Okay, I see one. This is just Johns Hopkins. They set this up. I'm wanting to say it was about 2 years ago, literally right before there was even a case in the United States. Johns Hopkins was monitoring the significant challenges that was at that time reported in China, and as once it hit Europe, they were already on the scene. So I'm wanting to say this dashboard was initially developed by, is like a postdoctoral fellow or assistant professor level. So somebody with some obviously very sharp analytical skill sets. And since that time, John Hopkins has provide a resource that has been used nationwide to track COVID-19. And although this is not interactive on my screen, although I do have it up on my web browser, and we can look at that by the end of the hour if somebody would like to, what I just wanted to show is that you could literally just click on any country of interest and it'll zoom in on that country of interest, or you can click on any one of the dots that you see on the screen, and then up will pop characteristics associated with that location and as it relates to COVID-19. So those are some the functionality of dashboards that one can have is really just limited to one's imagination, and of course the data of which you can manage. And I'm looking at the I am just taking a moment to look. Might be nice if we could see some okay, all right, I see that. So thank you for showing me your aesthetically gifted faces. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward from the worldwide significance as how it can be used for dashboards, just a quick little question: is anybody actively using dashboards for your own data right now? Anybody? Okay, all right. Okay, see Jared is all right. Well, that's good. So we'll just go in here in a moment and then just kind of go through some of the logic behind it. And this is where most people say, hey, it's like, this looks like it's more complex than what I can do. And I would argue that you can go from your survey results to a fancy looking or close to fancy looking dashboard, likely within an hour period of time, with the technical expertise that you have right now. And of course, I know that that's quite a range for us, but does anybody use survey or survey related responses in any of your data collection that you use on a, okay, so I see that, I see a thumbs up. And I also see, okay, I see a hand raised. And if there's a hand raised, please just interrupt me with a question if you would like to. If you're, I think that they're using hand raised to indicate a yes there. And so almost every data collection mechanism that we have, typically there's an export associated with that is in the form of like a CSV or an Excel file or something that would go into a data, for instance, that would go into a database. So in every case that I'm aware of, for instance, if you use Qualtrics or RedCap, that the data that is stored with it, that through the collection mechanism, is typically relatively easy to export. And so they can export that again as like a text file, CSV, or in an Excel file. And once that occurs, and we'll just go over that here in a moment, you can pull that data into whether it's Excel or some other form of data visualization system of which you can quickly develop a data dashboard. And so I just wanted, what I'm really hoping to communicate is that through your data collection mechanism, survey, like whether it's Qualtrics or RedCap, those systems are able to provide you with the data of which you would like to look at, assuming you would like to set up your own dashboard, and that system doesn't have already dashboard capacity. And so you can just export that as an Excel file, text file, or other database. And from that, you can literally transition that data into a dashboard so that you can explore your data literally within minutes. And so I also wanted to highlight just a couple of very common visual analytics software systems. And so the first, and I don't have it mentioned here, is Microsoft Excel. By a quick thumbs up, how many people use Excel on a regular basis? Okay, excellent. So I know what we're going to do here whenever we're done. So you already use Excel, and Excel, it provides it. You can actually go into a very relatively fancy looking dashboard of which you can immediately share with your colleagues or senior administrators that you communicate with. And so we'll show that here in a moment, but I'd like to highlight, again, I've provided the links. There's a software system called Tableau, and once you get familiar with dashboards, and assuming that you have access to it, I would encourage you to just look up Tableau, and you can get literally a 14-day free subscription to Tableau. I've privately purchased just a individual desktop use. And so the dashboard Tableau software that I have, I think it costs me personally around $300 or so, but it's typically well within, like, if you're just wanting to have the data, or excuse me, the software for yourself, it's probably within your budget or your department's budget as an exploratory mechanism of your data. Another software system would be a SaaS. For instance, there's visual analytics with SaaS. That's really more of a vested dedication to a analytics system. One of the great things about SaaS, however, is that they have a very robust statistical. Basically, it's a very robust statistical capacity with its data visualization systems. So if you're really wanting to invest and really wanting to make really wanting to be able to not only report on the data visualization, but on the statistical differences that you might see whenever you're visualizing your data, SAS is an excellent representative of that capacity. And finally, at least for today, Power BI, it's a Microsoft product, but it's very similar to Excel. So once you're used to working with an Excel dashboard, it really is a very simple merge over to Power BI. And Power BI provides a lot of what I perceive as good looking and easy to use functionality that can quickly provide a report that you can make into a PDF and have it apart, or Word document, or even PowerPoint document that you can quickly share with others. And I'll give you an example of that here in one moment. So I'm marking my time. It's 12:30. I see one person with a hand up, and I just want to make sure that I stop for just one moment and see if there are any questions that I need to address. Okay, is Power BI expensive? Great question. So Power BI, I can't, as of right now, give like direct reports on Power BI, but if you're using, if you have Excel, you can literally use, there's a Power Pivot within Excel that has very similar functionality as of what Power BI has. But Power BI would likely be an investment that you would need to look into with your IT, and of course, but it is. I know it is very commonplace. And the other thing that I'd like to highlight for those that are for those that serve in more of an administrative capacity, there are a lot of people have, once they've started to use these software systems, they've really been able to niche themselves as a local expert in these and quickly learn them. For instance, if some of you might be like experts in like some of your modifications of like video or pictures, so you might use some picture editing, and so you spend a lot of time working on some of those video or picture or sound editing software systems. And very similar to those types of systems of which you may have expertise already, quickly developed, if you invest the same amount of effort into any of these software systems, you will likely find that that skill set will be quickly recognized in the environment of which you work. Okay. Okay. Oftentimes, I also wanted to highlight if you reach out to your IT, oftentimes ITs will have purchased a number of different licenses that for their own analysis. So your IT may be analyzing Tableau or SAS or Power BI already, and they're just not advertising that they have it, but they have licenses that's associated with their evaluation. And if you just communicate with your IT representative and say, hey, in my case, work with this great IT representative named Travis, and I say, "Hey, Travis, I'm really wanting to check out this SAS. Do you know if the Norman campus is using anything here, and if so, can I get a license? Is there potentially a license available?" And Travis will write me back and say, "Yeah, we're actually checking this out. We've got two licenses left. I can speak with the head of whoever and determine if we can just send the next license over to you." And so you may actually be able to if you're interested, you may actually be one of those representatives within your university or institution that can actually provide some very positive user experience information to your IT, such that it results in the actual acquisition of the software for your company, college, etc. Okay, I'm going to, all right. So one of the things that we wanted to look at, and one of the things that our CTR efforts, particularly as it relates to mentoring, we've played a significant role. We played a significant role in being able to provide mentoring development opportunities here at the Health Sciences Center. And so in 2013, whenever I became the director of institutional research at the Health Sciences Center, I was planning on working with veterans more in the future, and that was kind of my career trajectory, or so I thought. And then once I stepped into the position, I realized, wow, there seems to be, at first I was like, why is there such a lack of representation in both, basically in the College of Medicine where I was working within our faculty. And at first I thought, well, this must be an error. And as I'm responsible for reporting on the matter, I really made sure that I was doing everything that I could do to act, making sure that the error wasn't on my part in my coding for certain items within the university's data system. So I looked at it and realized back in 2013 that, wow, we've got some significant challenges here. And then within the next few years, I literally had a shift in my career trajectory to work with the university executive leadership on developing strategies of which, hey, now we can see that working with this mentoring, basically working with a mentoring construct, we can provide to make sure that resources are available and focus is placed to provide opportunities for those that historically have not had as many opportunities. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to do. But I have this little data visualization. So if we just looked at, and I know giving population-based reports is not, I know that is not always appropriate for every type of question. For instance, there may be more men in, let's say, some of the let's say some of your technical things that are very, like your electrical field or something like that, and there are more women in nursing, etc. But whenever we're looking at things at an institutional level, we definitely want to say, hey, does our representation here meet that which we would expect? And the first way to do that is, well, what would we expect by our population? So here, just looking at the percent minority faculty that we have, assuming that we looked at that from our population, we would expect to have 370 out of our 1,278 faculty members. And please note that this was actually last year, and the counts are very similar this year, but nonetheless, I just wanted to report that this comes from last year's data. So whenever we look at from a visual analytics standpoint, and we say, hey, well, what does it actually look like here? And if I can successfully transition my slide, we can see here that, wow, the representation is maybe a fourth of what we would expect, or a third to a fourth of what we'd expect. And so we actually have 89 out of our 1,278 that would be recognized using the NIH standard of recognize a person as an underrepresented minority here at the Health Sciences Center. So that's just this is just one quick little example of kind of telling or showing a story in a data analytic way, or a data visualization way, excuse me. And so a little bit more focus on the Oklahoma Center for Mentoring Excellence. And that's where I play a role as it relates to CTR here. And our intent is to provide comprehensive faculty mentor development workshops. And we use 6 factors of which we determine the success of our mentoring efforts. And those 6 are maintaining effective communication, aligning expectations, assessing understanding, addressing equity and inclusion, and fostering independence, and then finally promoting professional development. So we have metrics associated with saying, hey, whenever we do a workshop, if it's maintaining effective communications, whenever we have these workshops, okay, well, how were people recognizing their capacity in this regard before these workshops? And then after the workshops, okay, this is how they self-reported. So this is a way that we can look at the strengths of our workshops, and it's also a way of which we can assess the institutional environment as well. My colleague, who I'll introduce here in literally just one moment, if I can figure out this slide transition, Dr. Natasha Michaels, my colleague that I work with. She's actually the director of the Oklahoma Center for Mentoring Excellence. And so they provide, she and I provide faculty mentor training to mentor medical students, fellows, junior faculty, graduate students, or residents. And all of these representatives, we say, yes, please participate in these workshops. And we've also been able to use a metric of which we've reached out to the students, the fellows, and the junior faculty and say, okay, well, what has your mentoring experience been thus far in your experience, in your career thus far? And then we can do the same for senior faculty, and we've actually done that. And so we've used these outcomes and evaluated these outcomes to say, hey, we definitely need these mentoring workshops. This is what is requested directly, and then we can show the need quantitatively. So, oops, looks like I'm going the wrong way with the arrow here. And so probably like you, if assuming that you're doing these workshops or collecting anything. So we've just used a Qualtrics, survey. And this is just literally a picture of my Qualtrics survey, or excuse me, my Qualtrics login. And so, yes, I have several active surveys out. And then I can literally just download out of Qualtrics, very similar to what you download out of RedCap, into an Excel file. And then from that file, I then pull it into, and in my case, I typically use Microsoft related products. I pulled it into Microsoft Access, and I translated the values. You can translate the values, oftentimes translate the values in a statistical software system, but I wanted to keep it as simple as possible for me. I'm familiar with Access, so I just pulled it into Access. Could have done the same thing in Excel with a VLOOKUP function or something. And so I quickly translated for instance, on the Qualtrics score, what campus they were. If it was a 1 or 2, I would say, okay, that's the OKC campus, Norman campus, Tulsa campus. What's their academic rank? So if it came out in a numeric format from the survey, I just translate that out so that I could have at the end of the day a single table that had all of my information based by respondent across a single line. And then from there, I just pulled it into my this Power BI system, and this is a report that would literally what appears to magically pop out. And I say it magically pops out. There's a little bit more to that. I literally typed in the sentence here, the title, Oklahoma Center for Mentoring Excellent Workshop Series Reports for the time frame of which I had it. And then I just was able to pull in, I was able to pull in quick little tables and populate those tables. And even though I'm not showing it, I can here in a moment, if we'll look at our time, 12:41, I think I'll go to an Excel format here in just one moment. Whenever you click on any of these, for instance, professor, associate professor, other, whenever you click on this, you will immediately see the scores that are associated with that. So let's say, hey, how did the associate versus the professor, what was that relation? What was that overall experience that they had? So if we saw at our professor level that if the experience was like 3.6 and then everybody else's experiences with like 4.4, we would want to self-evaluate and say, hey, what's, we need to make sure that we're looking at our the feedback from our professors and see how we can improve our workshops. So, but the other positive thing is we can provide this to and then we actually already did. We provided it to the CTR grant representative, and he was able to use that as a part of his annual or biannual reporting in regards to the outcomes of our workshops. And so I just wanted to, here in a moment, I will, it looks like we have close to 15 minutes before the end of the hour. And here in a moment, I was just going to actually go into an Excel table that actually I was going to show you basically an example of show you an example of a worksheet that you could use and see how that you could turn your data into a dashboard in Excel simply if you would like to do that. But so far, we've discussed the what and the why of data visualization and data dashboards. And also we've looked at just the steps of transitioning data from source to visualization. And then finally, we're about to, I've shown examples of exploring data with visual analytic systems, but actually I need to show you what that actually looks like in an operable system. So I'm going to stop share here, and I am going to reshare another screen here in a moment. I'm just going to open up my Excel. Looks like I'm going to open this up. And just like always, it appears that my connection failed, but I know where I was at. So I was connected with my IT VDI, and I am just going to pull up the file. I know where it's at. Please just give me one moment and I'll pull it up. Okay, so I'm pulling it up right now, and I will share screen, read only. It's pulling up. Okay. Okay, I'm going to share my screen one more time. Excuse me. Share screen, dashboard, share. Okay, so is everybody seeing this, what appears to be Microsoft Excel at the top of the screen? So this right here is just a quick example of a Microsoft Excel dashboard. And all this is to the side of this, I can scroll over. I've darkened out the background, but all I have is I have pivot tables, assuming everybody's used to working with pivot tables. So literally you just pull in your data, and we can do pivot tables. Literally, if you pull in your worksheet, your first worksheet that you have, let's say in this case, it would be last name, first name, department, etc. You'd have that across as columns, and literally you can put your cursor in A1, basically in the A1 field, and then you can say insert, click on insert and hit pivot table, and it'll automatically pull in pivot table. Matter of fact, I'm going to change this background. Let's see here. I'm going to just give you another example here. So I'm just going over, so you can, I'm not going to show you the source data behind this. Is quite bulky and just wanting to make, but you can see over here on this far right side, this represents, I have this little pivot table, and then all I have to do in my pivot table is I can hit insert and chart and graph, and it'll automatically pop up a chart or graph for your pivot table. And so you can then move it over there. You can insert these little slicers. So you can say insert, and then as your cursor is in a pivot table, you can say insert slicer, and then you can say, oh, I want to add birth or country or last name, credit hours, whatever you may be, what may be associated with your data. And so you can and you can just insert this slicer. But the cool thing about that slicer is it's attached to the data that you have. So in our case, and I'm going to move back over to where I was at, which is here because it looks a little cooler, or at least in my opinion. So this is demographic data associated with our university here at the Health Sciences Center. And so if I click on fall 2021, we will see, hey, this is how many students that we have. We have a total of 2,328 students, and those students, or at least we had at the time of census. And we can see, well, the majority of our students are female, 2,250. We have 988 males. And then we could look at, okay, well, what levels are these students? And 26% are at the undergraduate level, 10% in graduate research, and then the majority are professional level students, such as MDs, DDS, other physician associates, etc. We can also quickly have the age ranges shown here. And so you can see that I just have set up a quick little dashboard that represents self-identified gender, ethnicity, self-identified, age range, and academic level. And if, let's say, if you were a dean of any college or program, and of course I could give one, or if you're the provost and you say, okay, well, I would really like to look at, hey, what is my, I can see, okay, how does the Allied Health Sciences program look? And once I just click on Allied Health Sciences, this is the Ph.D. program, we can immediately see the characteristics associated with those students. And so this is we can do the same thing, and I'll do, like, let's say our certificate in nursing practice, relatively small program here, or a degree. I'll just go down to, let's say, our, so we can literally scroll down to any program that we have. And all right, well, let's look at I don't know how, here's our radiation therapy. And so we can see where we have what the characteristics that are associated with individual programs. We can also say, hey, is there any difference between, let's look at our 50 and over age range for our students, and you can say, what are the characteristics of those? And so the majority are women, and most of those are in a professional program. So you can see here where you can just literally use Microsoft Excel and go from just literally a table of data, something that you would extract from any of your query, or that you would receive a report on, that has the names of the variables, the top, in the first row of data, with the individualized responses on the left-hand side all the way down. And you can literally just move from that data source. You can say insert pivot table, and then you can start quantifying, as I have done I will show over here. You can literally just start quantifying by, whenever you highlight here, you can see here that I have count, and I can say, let's change this over to a percent. You can just manipulate just like you typically would. You can say, okay, well, let's actually change that. Excuse me here. Yeah, let's change that number format to a percentage. Or you can report it, show value as. You can say, let's say, and you can see that my percentages change. So you can quickly manipulate how you want to report on your data, whether it's percent, percent of total, percent of row, etc. And that's, again, just this is a very quick way of which you can begin to engage with your data, explore your data. And again, this is just a very relatively basic example of how you can move from a data that you have on hand to a dashboard. And the other very cool thing about this is you can send the same dashboard, assuming that's de-identified information on your people you're reporting on. You can literally send this Excel file to anybody else who has Excel. And I know there are some differences between the PC and Mac, but nonetheless, you can send it over to other PC users of Excel, the same basically Excel for Microsoft Office, and they'll be able to use your dashboard that you've developed for them. And then from Excel, you can graduate into, let's say, assuming you have access to the software system like Power BI, Tableau, it would really just take you about an afternoon to go to learn all you would need to learn to show you what I've done right here. And if you already have the data, you could literally go from the data that you have to what you see here on the screen within 30 minutes, assuming that you were just, and so practicing it over and over, it might take you a little longer the first time, but once you start doing it, your motor systems kick in, your memory kicks in, and you'll be able to quickly provide a lot greater of a data dashboard visualization perspective or capacity for the environment of which you work in. And so it appears that we have about 7 minutes left. I should probably discontinue talking about from a presentation standpoint, open up to any questions, and really I'm going to go ahead and stop share here, but I thank you for your attention and some of the feedback through your emojis that you provided and sharing screen. And I'd love to answer, will the slides be available? Yes. And Heather, if you just want to transfer the PowerPoint into a PDF and share, assuming that but feel free to use that PowerPoint for whatever purposes that you have.
Great questions. Ideas from anybody on how this could be used? There's a question for you about the pivot tables.
Yes. So I am going to open up, I'm going to close this. I'm going to just quickly move into just an example of pivot tables since we have a few moments. Let's see, I am trying to determine where I would save anything. Okay, I know what I did. I did a DEI report just a moment ago, DEI requests. So I have compiled. So I am going to faculty. I'm just going to hide. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Share screen one more time. Okay. So I've shared screen right here. So these are individual respondents and open access type of information that you would have as a part of anything that you do in regards to your university. So something that you give a public, literally just you provide to the public. And so we just engage with every one of our, hey, what's your job? So we just received a request from our senior diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, a university officer who works on the Norman campus. So my boss, Dr. Valerie Williams, received the request from the provost office, and she said, can we quickly turn around a response so that our chief diversity officer can report to our OU regents. And so since I also the director of institutional research, I have everybody's email addresses, and I also know what department they work in, what college, et cetera. I know, so I'm able to quickly collect all of that information to include full name, college, description, job title, location, academic title, and email address. And then I'm able to email it out to the representative that I need to, and then they respond with that same worksheet back, and they click whether, hey, DEI is in my title or formal position, yes or no, as indicated by an X, or I might not be in my title, but I actually work in this regard. So that would be, for instance, that would be true for me. I'm not a DEI, it's not in my formal position, but I do a lot of work with those offices. So I showing you what I did here. I literally just went from, as you saw a moment ago with that little Excel little screen, I literally just went up here and I hit insert. And so if you hit insert, you go to pivot table, and it'll just say, hey, and it'll automatically highlight all of your data. And then you just click pivot table, and it'll literally pop open to what you see right here. It'll literally just, and now you won't see this, you'll have to make that. But for instance, if I go here, you'll see that those things go away. So I'm able to say, all right, here's what it'll look like whenever you start out. It'll just be at this blank pivot table. And I'll say, okay, well, how many people am I dealing with? Okay, I'm dealing with 1,567 faculty member. Okay, well, what college are these people in? And I drop this down. Oh, here are the colleges that I've had correspondence with. Hey, I asked 2 questions. One of those questions were, what was their, do they have a formal title, a DEI title, or excuse me, do they have a formal title or position that is DEI specific? And in the, you would likely see, I've modified it, but initially you would have seen an X, and for these, this actually means blank. And so I just changed this here to this here. And so from here, check this out. So you can go from this little report. So here's the clicking, and I can simply click this insert. Excuse me. You can just literally just insert a pivot chart, and it'll immediately, you can immediately say, okay. And so literally from right there, you just have a graph of which you can use. The other thing I mentioned that you can say, here's, let's insert a slicer. I want to say college, job title, location. Okay, that pops up. That's associated with this little graph. And I'm just going to move this around just a bit. And it's kind of, I know it's very rudimentary, but let's say I want to look directly at the OKC campus. Bam, I click on it. My graph changes, and you saw my pivot table change. Want to look at the Tulsa campus? Same thing here. Look at both. There it is. Want to go down and look at a specific college or 2, there you go. You can do a quick little comparison. And so this may be of interest to you. It's, again, a quick way to visually go through some of the characteristics of which you may manage, and then also be able to provide a quick report. And that quick report, the great thing about that quick report is all that data, it's already, it's whole in nature. So you don't accidentally miss counts, assuming you haven't left on or off a filter. The other thing you can do with this is I can say, okay, well, these 2 are blank. If I quickly double click on these numbers, it'll pop up another sheet with those people's name and email address, et cetera. So all the data that I collected by individual, I can, wherever those people are at, let's say the College of Medicine Tulsa, if I wanted to look at these College of Medicine representatives, I would just literally double click on that, and it would pop up who those people are. So it's also a way that you can go into identifying individuals within a data set that you might have, of which you might want to have increased correspondence for, or with, et cetera. So it is a quick way to be able to do that, to do those efforts. And I know we're at our time point. Thank you very much. I know many of you have to leave right now, but I will stay on just in case any other people have questions that I might be able to, that you might want to know.
Thank you very much, Brent. This has been
Thank-
wonderful, and you're probably going to get questions or emails from people.
I really hope so.
Uh-huh.
And I thank you for the positive words of those that are departing. And I just wanted to say, I'm certainly able to meet via Zoom or something as you're struggling through this. It's, the stuff
Yeah.
isn't overnight. I'd be more than happy to communicate with any of you to help facilitate your efforts in this regard.
Well, don't they say a picture's worth 1,000 words?
That's what they say. That's
Yeah.
right.
I think it does. I think sometimes pictures tell stories better than anything else, and graphics and data. So this has been very, very helpful. Does anybody have any questions, or anybody want to stay on? Looks like a lot of, that's the problem with Zoom. Brand, as you know, they
Yeah.
book us back to back to back.
Yes, I know. I was concerned I'd be late. I had a previous one before, and I was like, I don't want them to be. And it was with my boss in an academic affairs meeting. So
Something you
certainly,
couldn't- yeah.
yes, yes, you have to be politically sensitive to make sure that you represent.
I think somebody would have let us know if they have a question. Does anybody have a question? If not, I want you to be able to get some time back here too,
Okay.
not wait on.
Yeah, I know sometimes people, they come into a meeting and they have to address other things and just keep it up in the background. So
Well, I see a lot of our stats people were here, and a lot of our IDSCTR, and a lot of our scholars, and a lot of our faculty that do a lot of research. So you hit a broad audience, which is great.
well, I appreciate again the invitation, and I want to throw out that I more than you pretty much know the areas of which I focus.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if I can provide any other contribution to this group, I'm more than happy to do.
Be careful what you ask for.
Like I said, I know exactly what I'm saying.
Bryant, you're still on. Did you have a question? Harlan? Anybody?
Okay, it looks like it looks like everybody's moving on to their next point in their day. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Heather.